In the late 17th century, surrounded by rolling green hills and endless forests, there stood a peaceful village called Willowbrook. The village was small, with only a few wooden cottages and narrow dirt roads connecting the homes. But the most important part of Willowbrook was the great river that flowed beside it. For generations, that river had given life to the village. It watered the crops. It provided fish for the villagers. And it powered the large wooden watermill that ground their wheat into flour. The villagers believed the river would flow forever. But one morning they woke up to something impossible. The river was gone. The morning of the mystery. It began on a quiet summer morning. The sun had just risen, and the villagers were beginning their daily work. Farmers walked toward their fields. Fishermen carried their nets toward the riverbank. But when they arrived, they stopped in shock. The riverbed was completely dry. Where flowing water had once rushed between the rocks, there was now only cracked mud and scattered stones. The watermill stood silent. The fishing boats rested uselessly on dry ground. No one could understand what had happened. A river that had flowed for centuries had simply disappeared overnight. Fear in Willowbrook. Word spread quickly through the village. Soon nearly everyone stood along the empty riverbank staring in disbelief. Some villagers believed it was a sign of bad luck. Others whispered that the river spirits had abandoned them. In the 17th century, many people believed nature was controlled by unseen forces. Without the river, the village faced disaster. The crops would dry, the fish would vanish, and the mill would stop producing flour. If the river did not return soon, Willowbrook might not survive the coming winter. The curious farmer. Among the villagers was a young farmer named Thomas Alder. Thomas was known for being thoughtful and observant. While the others argued about curses and spirits, Thomas studied the dry riverbed carefully. Something didn't seem natural. The ground was still damp in some places, and the river rocks looked as if water had only recently passed over them. Thomas believed the river had not vanished. It had simply been blocked somewhere upstream. The journey upstream. Determined to find the truth, Thomas decided to follow the empty riverbed into the forest. Several villagers joined him, carrying lanterns and tools. The group walked for hours along the winding river path. The deeper they traveled into the forest, the stranger the landscape became. Fallen branches and rocks were scattered everywhere. It looked as if something powerful had moved through the valley. Finally, they heard something unexpected. The distant sound of rushing water. The hidden lake. When they climbed over a rocky hill, the villagers stopped in amazement. Before them lay a massive lake that had never existed before. The river water had been trapped behind a giant wall of fallen trees and stones. A powerful landslide had blocked the river during the night, creating a natural dam. Behind the barrier, the water had gathered into a huge lake. But the river below the dam had been left completely dry. A dangerous problem. At first, the villagers were relieved to know the river still existed. But Thomas quickly realized something terrifying. The dam holding the water looked unstable. If it suddenly collapsed, the massive lake would rush down the valley all at once. The flood could destroy the entire village of Willowbrook. They had to act quickly. The village's courage. The villagers returned to Willowbrook and explained the danger. Everyone worked together. Farmers, millers, and fishermen all joined the effort. Using axes and ropes, they carefully removed sections of the fallen trees blocking the river. Their goal was to slowly release the trapped water before the dam collapsed. It took an entire day of hard work. Finally, the barrier weakened enough for water to begin flowing again. Slowly at first, then faster. Soon the river rushed down its old path toward the village. The river returns. By evening, the sound of flowing water returned to Willowbrook. The empty riverbed filled again. The watermill began turning once more. The villagers cheered with relief. Their village had been saved. And they had learned an important lesson. Nature could be powerful and unpredictable, but with courage, teamwork, and wisdom, people could overcome even the most frightening mysteries. Ending. From that day forward, the people of Willowbrook always remembered the day the river disappeared. It became a story told to every new generation, a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries have simple explanations, and sometimes the survival of a village depends on the bravery of those willing to search for the truth.